comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is to adopt resolution approving inter-fund loans. Commissioner Udi?
Second that.
Commissioner Murray? Questions on approval of the inter-fund loans? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4, to approve the revised county board March and April meeting schedule. Looks like there's just a couple of add-ons and a date change.
Make a motion to accept that.
Comments on the date changes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5 is to approve appointment to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board.
We'll move on that.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Skoye.
Second that.
Commissioner Murray. That is to approve a new 5-year term for Pam Sellers. Please thank Pam first. Any other comments?
No, Mr. just took another term as on the housing board.
Yeah, we appreciate Pam's service. Any other comments for hearing on all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Up next, we have the dialysis update. Commissioner, what you got? Do you want to do it, or?
Who are these presenters, Mr. Chairman?
Distinguished
Distinguished. And I'll do it. Just want to let you all know that on January 28th, a number of us got together and discussed the current and future status of providing dialysis in our community. Commissioner Ady and myself, we had the county administration, we had Public Health and Human Services Director, we had the Public Health Supervisor, we had representatives from Brain Lake Medical Center and Essential Health. It was a very good meeting. We talked a lot about what was done in the past. Just a lot of that was for me, just to be updated. And I really appreciated that. There was some things done since then. Just looking into it, which was nice to hear. One of the things that was something new and we wanted to look into it was Rain Lake Medical Center was going to talk to Sanford because they now have a dialysis in Bemidji that operates 6 days a week. And through those discussions, the same challenge that everybody else has is this numbers just aren't there. One thing I did find out by attending that meeting and talking in depth with them is that this is a lot bigger project than something the county can put on. This is something our medical providers are the ones that are going to have to do it. I mean, it doesn't hurt to nudge and ask at times, but really this isn't a county function in itself. We can't support something like that. And talking to them, I realized that. I really went into it hoping that something could come out, and so did Commissioner Ady. It just isn't feasible for us to do. And let me tell you that even though this isn't a county board's, I think a responsibility I myself, not that I have a personal interest, I don't have anybody on dialysis, but I think it's an important thing. And I will, in my meetings, from time to time, when I'm talking to the medical fields, I will talk to them and see if, how things are going. I think this is something that we're just not going to drop and leave as it is. One of the things we did find out also is that yearly outdoor expo that the Covenant Church puts on has collected money over the years, and they have some money in the amount of $10,000 that they'd like to contribute to us as a donation to help anything that we may do. And as we all talked about before, I think we had 9,000 or 10,000 in the counties. But I'd like to see, and I think we've talked about it, is that we start or get a fund and implement it in regards to helping those that have to travel out of town, help them with maybe some gas cards. The Public Health and Human Services is able to coordinate the getting the gas cards and distributing them. There would need to be a policy developed stating the criteria for recipients. Public Health and Human Services does not have the capacity to fundraise, but they would be willing to discuss about the of how to distribute it through their agency. So I guess from there is we have that question: is this something you want to do?
Thank you for digging into that. And
Anything else, Kevin?
That sounded pretty much like it, so.
Okay.
Yeah, the one concern I have is, how many gas cards do we wanna hand out to individuals, I don't wanna see one individual get, $5,000 worth, cause once you're doing dialysis, it's kind of a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if a person would want to limit on that number, or, one thing that somebody mentioned along the way is, the little bit that we get from the expo. I mean, I doubt if that's enough to last for even a year, But I know when Chuck was on the board, he had even done a couple of fundraisers with music, and anything that was made was contributed to the dialysis fund, so. But somebody somewhere along the line had also mentioned, an organization other than the expo, because that's just a one time a year thing, somebody had mentioned doing a fundraiser that kind of like they do with the cancer walk, they make quite a bit of money on that. I think they do with Lou Gehrig's disease. They do a fundraiser and have several hundred people walking and stuff, and have collected donations. So, but and that again is something that we shouldn't be doing here on this level. Should be a nonprofit agency or whatever. So
One of the things that on our board, Koochiching Aging Options, is they do also provide a funded transportation program for certain. I'll get into the specifics, but they do limit that. So much a year for so many people. So,
Yep.
And they do ask for those that can afford stipend, but this, I think in this case, would be a little different. But that's not a bad idea. So it doesn't all go up to one people, which is easy to do. Yeah.
I got a question for you, Terry. On the money that was, I didn't hear, but the money that's been donated by these different groups, if that was intended to go into getting something here, are they going to feel okay about giving it out to people for gas cards, to a to a different place than what they think of, or what they thought it was gonna go to. And that would be the same thing in fundraisers too. If they have a fundraiser and they designate something, I would say that, yeah, maybe Kevin's right. This isn't something that the county should do, but some group should maybe.
I don't know specifically if, I don't know specifically if the money that's in there was designated specifically for.
From the expo?
Yeah, from the expo and that Chuck did, and, you know, I think it was all combined.
Okay.
But, I don't think it was earmarked for dialysis itself. You know, I think gas cards would probably fit into that criteria or whatever, you know, so,
And the covenant, this Mike, I don't know how to say this last name. Clafic. Anyhow, he did talk about if these could be used for funds for gas cards also, so that was a good idea.
And if they agree to it, I mean, it's fine, but you have to be careful of.
Yeah, that's good. Yep, I agree.
and the amount that's there is just under 10,000. It's 9,900 and something, I think, so.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, we have not received the donation yet from the Covenant Church. He just talked to me about possibly doing that donation. I was going to wait till after this discussion today to get back to him. So I think what I'm looking for, if you want to take any action, would be to authorize Public Health and Human Services to develop the criteria for that program, and then it would come back to board for approval. And so then all of that criteria would be laid out as to, you know, who gets it and how much they can get and things like that. So
Take that motion?
I'll second.
Brady, and thank you both for looking into that too. It did result in some stuff. Yeah. And just one question, would the HHS be able to administer and distribute the gas cards, or would that be, is that what we're talking of is from another group? Would they be able to?
you know, Public Health said that they would go ahead and distribute the cards, but we also may reach out to the same folks that distribute the cancer cards. I did talk to that person, and they would be willing to do that as long as they knew exactly what the criteria was, because they didn't want to be responsible for, you know, distributing those cards. So at some point we may coordinate with them.
Good idea.
To see, it would be convenient for those folks, I think, to have one location to get gas cards.
Good idea.
Mr. Chair, that would have been my only comment. We have to be careful just taking it and pointing illness. There are many other issues that come up with people. Somehow we have to treat them equally, because there are others who just financially can't afford the trips that they have to go to for Medicaid, for medical purposes, not just dialysis.
Otherwise,
All I'm saying is we've got to be careful.
What whoever is giving a donation, I mean, that's what I mean. If they, you know, if they're donating it and they're happy with the rides, okay, but if they're saying they want to go to research or something, then they have to be. That's why if if Public Health wants to assume that, I guess it's.
Well, and just to finish, I like Kenny's idea. Send it over there and see what they come up with. Some sort of criteria or something.
Maybe they can go off with something else that they already have there.
By the way, I just would add, Chuck Lepper worked on this tirelessly for 10 full years. It was just frustrating because, you know, we kept thinking maybe we could partner with Fort Francis and stuff. And I think, Terry, you were telling me that's just, it's not ever going to happen. So, especially now with the border locked and things like that, we thought if we could combine both communities, you know, we could maybe make it financially feasible. But it's the criteria for this kind of care is, it's very expensive.
Yeah, and with like a lot of other things, we're looking at numbers. You know, being on the Canadian border eliminates half the area in which we can pull from. You know, and it just makes it harder.
course, it's the same thing up there, they're looking at, because they don't have something, or we have something that they don't have, and they don't have access to it, and they can probably see it out their window, you know.
Yeah, that's frustrating. With HIPAA rules and that also, it makes it very challenging to get numbers even. You know, I mean, you know, they can't give out names and you know, just finding out how many people do travel out of town for dialysis. Hands are tied, you know. Unless they want to come forward and let us know that, you know, that they're one of them, you know, so.
If I could, Mr. Chair, that was one of the big problems Commissioner Lumber had. I put it together because he could never put numbers to it. It was frustrating. But anyway, I appreciate the work you folks put into this thing.
So we have a motion and a second to forward this to HHS, develop a policy. Are there comments on that? Again, thank you, commissioners.
If I can, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would you want maybe Terry and myself to work with Health and Human Services to do that?
Yeah, if you want to touch base with them and see what they're looking at, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't know if they want our input or not, but
I'm following through with it.
They'd want mine. Just kidding.
If there are no other comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item, let's see, 7 is the addition, which is the clean car standards discussion, to consider board action.
Good morning. I'm not sure that I heard you correctly. Hopefully you were calling me to the table.
We have one addition before you, Jackie. We have the number 7 addition, which is the clean car standards deduction. So just be a few more minutes.
Great. I'll wait.
Did everybody have a chance to look at the clean car? All the information?
Yeah. Well, I looked at a lot of it, not all of it.
We do have some hearings today and tomorrow, or yesterday and today, actually, yeah. So they have hearing yesterday and hearing today. The hearing starts at, I believe, 2 or 3 and goes till right around 6. And I think Dan from MRC was looking for some support in the form of a resolution that we oppose the MPCA making rules that are coincide with California rules that would affect us in Minnesota here, especially in our county. So I personally am not opposed to clean car standards. However, I think there needs to be some common sense legislation that goes with it. And I think Commissioner Segoy and we discussed it a little bit. And, I think he would agree too. And with what we do here is important to have that discussion. So, Commissioner Segoy?
I read most of what Dan sent out last night. I didn't see his resolution in there, or the blanket the resolution, but I did take some time and I went on to see what their governor signed in, and oh my goodness, it is really cumbersome and would be very hard on rural Minnesota. And I don't think that that's a path that we should put on with. So I think that we should come up with something to, as a board, and then send something into the rulemaking of what is it? It's not a trial judge. It's
They're doing testimony and hearings today.
yeah.
And then they're gonna accept public comment till I believe it's March 15th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Probably a decision will be after that. It sounds like so.
Yeah.
There are some time for public comment and for anybody to look into it that would like to. It might be important to.
I think there's some movements in the legislature to get Minnesota right out of that fact that the MPCA can have those rulemaking decisions. Yeah, like I said, when I read that 4-page or 5-page deal that California, it's, oh my goodness, it's all encompassing, all of them. It doesn't look good.
Yes.
The EOA right now is in the process. We just done it last week to, they're purchasing, I forget, it's 2 or 3, electric buses. So they're gonna be adding, electric ones to their fleets, so. Yeah, I'm not real sure where the electric buses are gonna be, but it's forthcoming. So
Kenny, have we heard from our representatives on this issue?
You know, I've been in contact with Representative Eklund. He was not able to attend the meeting today. He thought maybe we could schedule something for the next meeting, although it sounds, he thought he was going to be tied up on March 9th, which is our next meeting as well. But we could always add a committee of the whole meeting, or, you know, an additional meeting if Eklund is available and wants to speak on it.
I just totally share the sentiment that we want nothing to do with any California standards anymore. They're absolutely crazy. People are leaving that state as fast as they can. So I'm very cautious of incorporating anything into Minnesota based on California standards. I'd like to know a lot more about it and where our people stand.
And there's also Mr. Chair, there's also the thing that I believe that the MPCA has rulemaking authority that can go around the legislature. I'm wondering if I think that AMC is looking to try to, I mean, not AMC, but MRC to try to get that taken out of there so that they do not have ruling authority to make rules that the, I mean, because the legislature is voted on by the people to make rules and regulations and not some bureaucratic.
I would agree, there should be some legislative input. That's kind of how the process, in my opinion, should work. Get some voices out there. I think it is different in different regions. There was some bills that were on the table to be introduced in a Senate file that probably won't even make it to committee, really. So that we're actually going to repeal the PCA, or propose to repeal the PCA's authority. So there are some other those persons working on it too and looking at it. So there's many people that are aware of it at the state level as well. So.
But I guess I did not see the MRC proposed deal to, I mean, so I didn't get a chance to read it. I don't know if it's in here or not.
It was in an email from MRC. And
yeah, but I thought I caught him last night, but somehow I missed that one. So
it was a template.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Jenny has her hand up there.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the resolution their proposed resolution is in their addition packet. And it's right after, it's kind of midway through the packet, it's right after MRC's information, right after the talking point.
Like I said, I looked at a lot of stuff online last night, but I did not. Which page is it?
Did everyone find it?
Which page is it?
Kind of in the middle there. I mean, there's not a page number.
I read that stuff from California last night, but I did not see this one. Okay, here we are. Do we want to act on this today? Or are we going to the next meeting.
That is the wishes of the board. It's up to, that's what we do here. If we want more information, we do have time, but we probably will have to schedule a prior to the meeting. If we can get a discussion with Representative Eklund. We can always schedule something if he has some availability, if that's okay too. Or we can act on it today too. It's entirely up to him.
I mean, I can tell you flat out, I'm not supportive of anything following California. But our MRC delegation representatives, I'm assuming you've had more information on this. Just reading this, I mean, it ends, at least coming from their proposal. We oppose MPCA's attempt to adopt California mandates through rulemaking without consulting the legislature. I mean, to me, that's even kind of weak. I feel strong in that, but at the very least, I think we could have done our.
I agree with Commissioner Paddock, yeah.
I'll accept motion or move or whatever we like.
We'll wait.
I'll gladly move.
I'll second.
Mr. Chair, you're making a motion to adopt this resolution as provided, the sample resolution that okay.
Because I know at the meeting, Dan was quite passionate about this resolution. So.
And we're represented there, so I mean, I'm comfortable.
Could we forward that to Dan maybe today, Jen?
Absolutely. As soon as I get that drafted, and then he also provided a list of you should get a copy of the resolution, and I certainly all agree with that. Governor Tim Walz, the MPCA commissioner, the Senate Majority Leader, Speaker of the House, and a couple other, one senator and one representative. And who else? And of course, Dan Larson, and of course our state senators and representatives as well. And I can just, certainly attribute that to all of the that group.
Thank
as
you.
recommended by Commerce.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Commissioner Skoye, for keeping on top of that and bringing it to the board. Any other comments on the clean car?
Sure.
Yes,
What did
Commissioner.
you say, public comment was, due?
I believe they're open to public comment on the 15th of March. So there is a link in the website, either MRC or Clean Car. It'll pop up, and there's plenty of advocacy groups against as well. So you can find some information through the MRC website, and you'll get a link that'll direct you to your comments. So if there's any comments that need to be directed or would like to be directed, that's at least the time to do it is before March 15th. You can join the link to the hearing today as well through that same website. So there's a link to
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to say that I'm definitely not against clean air and working on this, but I think we need one that fits Minnesota and not California. I agree. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, if you go on the MRC website, or I mean on the email from Dan, go down there is a copy of the California proposal and link it. So it's something that is it makes it look like if we do that, we're going to step into utopia. Everything is going to be bluebirds.
My biggest concern is the young guys like putting those big mufflers on. How's that going to work?
Speaking of young guys, look who just walked in the room, Mr. Chairman. Quietly on the end.
Do we have any other comments on the clean car? Again, I appreciate Commissioner Skoye keeping us all up to date on that. If there are no other comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. Thank you. All right, Jackie, that was more than a few minutes, but that's okay. Are you still around?
I'm still here.
All right.
So the first request I have before you is for changes to the boardroom audiovisual system that we have in place. After getting everything in place, finding some issues with what we have, I reached out to our vendor, iSpace Technologies, for some additional changes to be made to try and make for a better experience. So in the request, I'm looking for 3 different components. The first is to add a display that would be posted directly above where the public seating area is, so the commissioners could look directly forward rather than to their side, in order to view the same content. That display on the wall will remain where it is. There'll be 2 displays that will display the same content. The second portion is for audio, and from my perspective, this is the most important because we're still having difficulty hearing some of the commissioners, primarily due to the face masks you're wearing for protection, but also long-term it could become an issue regardless. This would add individual mics that look like this to each commissioner's station, and one would go on the public speaker station as well, so that it would have their individual mics and be easier to hear. The third portion of this is for the video. I'm looking to change out the cameras. Right now, if you look up, you can see 2 white cameras, and the microphones are set to swap back and forth depending on who's speaking. I'd like to eliminate that and have 1 camera centered on the wall that faces the commissioners at all times. The only time it would switch would be to a camera posted directly above the commissioner's head to present anyone speaking from the public or to the board. And that would be activated by the new mics that I'm adding. There would be 1 dedicated mic. This request was not included in the budget because it wasn't known that it would be needed. It's a total of $22,100. It includes a credit for some of the equipment that we would be returning and be downsized from a 65-inch display to 75-inch in the boardroom. I'm looking to use some of the contingency funds that Jenny holds in her budget, but did manage to scrape out about $8,000 out of my IS budget that was planned for other projects. I'm looking to the board for their wishes on whether they would like to proceed with these changes or part of these changes, or what your feedback is.
The only thing that I would add to this, and Jackie and I have talked about this may be eligible for reimbursement using FEMA funds. So 75% of the cost. We're going to submit our first request to FEMA for some other ongoing COVID-related costs that we've had at the beginning of March. So we're going to we have December, January, and February expenses. We'll go through that process. I don't think we'll have this bill in our system yet, but we'll see how that process goes and how lenient they are. But I certainly would think that it should be eligible for some FEMA reimbursement. So that is also a potentially could happen.
We don't really know how much longer we'll have to be doing it. But as long as we do it, it is important for the citizens of our county to be able to hear us and know what's going on here. And if it isn't happening right now, I hate to spend this kind of money, but I don't really think we have any other choice. We have to be available to, I would think, to our constituents.
I get around quite a bit. We have the smallest county boardroom of all the counties that I attend. And that makes it very difficult, no matter what we do here, on having the public being able to access us person to person. And so, I mean, just in my head, I'm wondering if is this going to be temporary or not, who knows? But I mean, the only big room we have is the third floor courtroom, and if you got enough people in there, it takes the echo down. The echo's a problem up there if it's just, a few people. But I'm just throwing that out there. Would that make sense? Because no matter what we do here, we're still limited on how many people.
Yeah, I guess how I'm looking at it is I think we do need to be available, and I think what Jackie's done and what this pandemic has done, I guess, has given people the ability to join remotely, participate remotely. They can participate in the building from another room remotely if there isn't enough room here. You know, we've had times where we have filled up the area, and right now wouldn't be an easy time to do that. So I believe that this is a good spend of money to get our get the recordings correct and understand what's going on. Ready?
Jackie, I was kind of confused on, you, the, with the purchase of another screen, the 65-inch, did you say we were gonna have two screens, or were we gonna get rid of this one?
No, there would be two screens. The one you see in the room would remain there so that people on the opposing side of the room could still view what's going on, but there would be another display directly across from where the board chair sits, mounted up high on the wall with the camera above it so that you...
Kind of in between the two cameras then?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
What, as long as we have the trouble with the spacing, I think we're going to be having that problem no matter what we do, because we're not going to be able to get any number of people in this room. And well, what Jackie, when we did this, what were we or what did you estimate on how long we're going to have to remain in this configuration? You know, if the COVID is done by August, I mean, are we going to be changing how we're seated in here? I mean, how many more changes are we going to make?
The layout of the room wasn't a decision that I made. That was a decision made by Jenny and by her contractor when they were trying to find furniture that would make the room usable during the pandemic. As far as audio video equipment, this makes the room fixed more or less in the configuration you have. Obviously, the partitions and the tables that you sit at would change, but by and large, the way the room was laid out with the board sitting across the east end and the public and presenter across the west end would remain the same. One thing I would like to mention also is that with the equipment that's in the room, by adding the camera configuration change and the mic changes, this room would meet open meeting requirements post-pandemic when all the waivers have been removed. So for the good convenience of the commissioners, they could meet remotely as needed.
Thank you for mentioning that, Jackie. Commissioner Evelyn?
Well, we've got to get through the crisis we're in, and until that happens, I mean, things are not. But I'm just a huge believer that every citizen has every right to face their government face to face. This is over. At the very least, I would want to see it get back to maybe a table configuration with the chairs in here so that enough people can come here and face to face. I can't tell you how many times we've had 30 or 40 people in this room and we were able to do it. Of course, it wasn't the virus, but when a hot issue comes, people want to come and they want to see you in person. So I'm just a big supporter of that. But I mean, looking at this is the situation we're in, and everyone's done a great job. I can live with it until this is over.
Wishes of the board?
Who knows what the future holds? Nobody may never want to come and see us.
Make a motion to approve this recommendation.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ady. I'll give to him. That's okay. Any other comments or concerns for Jackie?
Oh, thank you, Jackie.
Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. So the next request I have before you is kind of a routine one. It's for the replacement of devices and user systems for 2021. The list is small due to all the purchasing that was done there with CARES Act funds. We're down to just a handful of laptops being purchased with the breakdown you see for Health and Human Services, Information Systems, and Land and Forestry. All of these are budgeted for 2021.
Motion to transfer devices.
Make the motion.
Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. And the third request I have before you is for the introduction of a new internal system to monitor network activity for files, for user privilege accounts. It basically will be the eyes inside to make sure that we are in compliance and that our systems are protected. It has what's considered artificial intelligence, so it will watch most user patterns to see how people normally function. If it sees a significant change for any one device for activity, it's going to send email alerts so that we can respond quickly rather than let something like ransomware be spread throughout the county before it's identified. It also provides us with the ability to produce compliance reports for CJIS, which is our law enforcement data, for HIPAA, for PCI, which is for credit cards, which I'm sure is coming down the pipe soon. It's a very robust system. It's new technology for the county, and I spent a significant amount of time reviewing tons of different solutions. This one seemed to be the best fit for Koochiching County at a cost of $14,900 to buy into it, and then an estimated annual renewal of about $7,500. This has been budgeted for in the IS budget for 2021.
Okay, Commissioner Pavlik.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray. Comments on the cybersecurity? Questions?
You're smarter than us.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much.
Okay. Okay, if there is nothing else, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you for all the work, Jackie.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for your support.
Our 10 a.m. item C was one of our deletions, and up next is the Land and Forestry. Nathan.
Morning.
This is to approve the configuration of the trust.
Yep, this is kind of standard annual business. This is to annually approve our two reserve accounts that we had budgeted for in 2021 as pre-apportionment, and then approved the settlement of the 2020 tax forfeited apportionment. Doing the promotional account that we talked about or so ago.
I'll second.
What are those percentages again?
For the promotional account,
Yeah, just a quick rundown of that.
so it would be the same as last year, so it would be, we're allowed to do, we're using $7 per capita for the promotional account. So of that total 87,000, 50% or 57% goes to the cities, with International Falls getting 50% of that allocation, and the remaining 43% to the KDA.
Or if I could, Mr. Chair, a little history. This is unique to Koochiching County. We set this up quite a few years ago, simply because, the cities struggle, especially the small cities, to do anything. So, because we've always had good portions and good management of our timber revenue, that's how we came along. Those are one of the reasons. We use a couple other sources too to help fund the cities so that they were able to get some money.
Any other comments? Thank you, Commissioner Melvin. Hearing none, I'll call the question to approve text or the trust fund apportionment.
We already made the motion.
I apologize. There are no other comments or questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Next up, we have Public Health and Human Services. And who do we have with us today from?
Hi, Kathy LaFrance wasn't able to be here today, so I am aside.
Hi, SMA.
Hi, Terry.
Is he a good boss or not? We gotta give Terry a hard time here, so.
So we have, item one is to approve the bid warrant.
Move.
Sure. I'll second. Discussion on
I'm sorry, was it Murray and 80?
Oh, that was the.
Okay, sorry about that. So Tablet made the first?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. Okay.
That's why you heard me and
Yeah, yeah.
I can't hear it. Any comments for the warrant void? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And item 2 is to accept a donation of quilts.
And that was where First Lutheran Church donated 12 quilts to public health to give out to community members in the home visiting program.
I'll move. Thank you, Commissioner Edie.
I'll second them.
Commissioner Skoye. So did a few families receive some quilts then, and they get kind of dispersed every year, or is this?
Yeah, I guess this is an ongoing donation, and then when the nurses go out to visit with new moms in the community, they can gift them with a quilt.
Oh, that's a nice gift. So,
Yeah.
very nice. Well, thanks to the First Lutheran Church quilters. We appreciate their donation. I'm sure the mothers do. I know how we still have some of the first quilts we received when our children were born, so they're still kicking around the house. So,
That's pretty neat.
so yeah, comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Esther. We took care of item 3 during the financials.
Thank you.
Next up is highway business.
All right. Morning, everyone.
How are you doing?
It's nice to see everybody in person.
Partially anyhow.
Yeah.
What you can see.
So it's bid opening season for us. The first item on the agenda is award the Bear River Bridge replacement, which is SAP 036 601 014. We had the bid opening for that on, let's see, what was it, the 17th, so last week. We actually had a total of 7 bidders, which is phenomenal. That's great. We had a lot of interest on that project. The Bear River Bridge I think it's about 7 miles west of Little Fork. It's been programmed to be replaced for several years now. It's in rough shape, so we're going to replace it with box culverts, 3 lines. Our engineer's estimate was, let's see, where is that? $684,966.15. Gladen Construction actually came in with a low bid of $617,028.77, which is about 9% below the engineer's estimate, which is great. This bridge is partially funded by bridge bonding. So bridge bonding will pay approximately 45%, and we pay with our CASA construction funds the remaining 55%. So we're looking for approval to award to Gladen for that $617,028.77. And also authorization for the board chair to sign the contract agreement.
We'll move on that.
Second.
Sweet.
Yes, very good, very good.
And you're right, Trent, you couldn't miss that one when you hit it with your pickle.
No.
Oh, any comments on the bridge? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sounds good.
Okay, the second item is award bid for 036, SAP 036 620 -010. This is the CASA 20 angle parking project in Rainier. Again, this is a project we've been working on for several years. We opened the bids on February 8th. 3 bidders. Again, we got good prices. Wagner Construction came in low at $478,599.05 versus the engineer's estimate of $523,491.32. So essentially, Wagner came in at 8.5% below budget. This will be paid out of our CASA municipal construction funds, and it also has a Rainier portion of approximately $35,000. Because in order to tie in the other streets, the project extends those funds. So Rainier will reimburse us that cost. They will incur the cost.
The mayor's not supervising this.
No.
I'll move, Mr.
Commissioner Penoblik?
I'll second.
Commissioner Stoy?
He'll do a good job.
Thank you, Trent, for work. Any comments for Trent on 2020? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Services business.
So today, we have a presentation about the County Geologic Atlas Program. This is a program which produces maps and databases that describe the geology and water and mineral resources of the county. Informs may be useful for land use planning and resource management. With us, I hope we have Barbara Lasardi, and I hope I said that name right. She's the
Yes, you did.
Geologist Associate Director from the Minnesota Geological Survey. Emily Bauer, also from the Minnesota Geological Survey. Is she here?
I'm on the phone.
Yeah, hi, Emily.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, thank you. And Paul Koochiching from the DNR, did I say his name right?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. Paul Putzier.
Putzier, okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, Barb, if you'd just like to start the presentation, I think that'd be great.
And do I have permission to share my screen, please?
I think, yes. Go ahead.
Let's give this a whirl. Okay, can you see a slide that says Minnesota Geological Survey?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for allowing us to present. Again, I'm Barbara Lusardi, the Associate Director of the Minnesota Geological Survey, and with me is Emily Bauer, who is the head of our Water Well Department, and Paul Putzier from the Department of Natural Resources. We are excited to present to you about our County Geologic and Groundwater Atlas program. Okay, my screen doesn't go forward. There we go. Why do you need a county geologic atlas? Well, because you are making land use decisions all the time. You are building roads, you're mining natural resources, you are maybe mitigating oil spills or tanker spills. You want to protect your natural resources, your waters, your rivers, your wild rice. And that information requires that you have an understanding of the container for those things. Geology, the sediments at the surface, the rocks at the surface contain those materials. So the water that you get out of your faucet comes from under the ground. The minerals that you use and anything that falls onto the surface is determined by the geology, what happens to that and where it goes. And so that's why we have developed this County Geologic Atlas program, so that you can get an understanding of the geologic materials and the groundwater flow patterns, so that you can suitably manage mineral and water resources. So that is the purpose of our program, so that you can use this information to make these land use decisions, to protect your wellhead and source water areas, and to monitor and support permitting decisions. So once you get, the Atlas program is divided into two pieces. Part A is the geology, and that is done by the Minnesota Geological Survey. Part B is done after Part A is complete, and that is done by the Department of Natural Resources. We're going to focus on Part A today. Paul is here, so at the end, if you have questions about Part B, he will certainly be able to answer those. But this presentation will focus mostly on what you get with a Part A. This is the Geologic Atlas, and we do provide 5 to 6 different map plates that will help you in your decision making. The first of these is the database plate, and this is where we compile all the information that we have used to make the rest of the maps. So the water wells that your folks will locate, drill cuttings, drill samples, rock exposures, anything from Department of Natural Resources borings, USGS borings, MnDOT bridge borings. We'll pull all of that information together and make use of everything that we can get our hands on, and it will be presented in a database plate so that you can see what information we used to make our interpretations. Secondly, we will create a bedrock geologic map. The bedrock is the basement material underneath all the glacial drift and peat and lake sediment is hard rock. And so we'll have folks who will be looking at drill core, they'll be looking at outcrops if there's any available, they'll be looking at geophysics to be able to determine what type of rocks are underneath the land surface. And that will be presented in a map, and there will be a legend and a key so that you can identify and understand what those rock units are. Another two types of bedrock maps that we will include are the bedrock topography and depth to bedrock maps. And these are similar in a way. Bedrock topography is much like the land surface topography. So is there a valley? Is there a deep valley in the bedrock like is shown here in Cass County in the cool colors? Or is there a hill, almost a mountain ridge in these warmer colors through the center of the county? This is what the bedrock surface looks like underneath all of that glacial drift. The second map is the depth to bedrock map, and this is just a representation of how deep you would have to drill through anything that's on top of the bedrock surface. So if your bedrock is higher, chances are you have a less thickness of material on top of that to drill through. So if you needed to drill a well in this area, you're going to have to go way deep if you need to hit bedrock. In Koochiching County, the depth to bedrock can be quite variable. I've seen it can be 50 feet or less in some places and over 400 feet in other places. We also map the surface materials. And so is it sand at the surface? Is there lake sediment? Is there glacial till, which is a combination of clay and gravel and sand? It can be very complicated, so our maps show a lot of detail. There's a lot going on in these glacial sediments, different ice advances, different types of material, and sometimes that's not as useful as you might think. The detail is nice, but if you really just want to know, is it sand or is it not, then that's the joy of our digital products, because in a GIS environment, you can actually recode this complicated map and show where it's only sand. And so that's the example here on the right that simplifies that same map into something that might be more manageable to answer the question that you have. We also draw lots and lots of cross sections. A cross section is like the material you would see in a road cut, so a vertical exposure of material, except that we do our cross sections from the land surface all the way to the bedrock surface. We will draw them every kilometer throughout the county, and so Koochiching is a big county, so we'll have quite a few cross sections. And what we're looking for here are these subsurface sand bodies. This is where lots of folks are getting their wells, their well water from. And so we want to identify those sand bodies, how interconnected they are, how useful they might be as a water resource. And so we take that information and we create 3D models of the layers below the land surface. And then we represent those layers as maps so that you can see the distribution of sand that you can't see at the surface. So if you were to, if you needed to drill a new municipal water well, that's a $700,000 prospect. So if you have information that can help guide you where you might find a couple of sand resources at depth, that is a good use of your funds. We also provide an Atlas user's guide that explains each of these different map products, the information they contain, and how you can use that information to answer the various questions that you might have. We have a website where all of our data is posted. You can pull up PDFs of each printed map. You can pull up all of the GIS digital files to bring into your own work project. We also have an interface that you can access all of the material through your browser, so you don't actually need any special software. This is called the Story Maps, and it is also available from our website. And finally, we do actually still print paper maps, and you can see how complicated those maps are. So it's not just the map. There's quite a bit of introductory text to provide context. There's the map units and the description of all of that material for texture and grain size. And then there's a lot of regional information about the geology so that all of that information makes sense to the user. How do we make this happen? We ask the county provide some effort so that you have an investment in this work as much as we do. And that effort includes locating the water wells. I believe there's about 1,000 unlocated water wells, and that number may increase as we're still entering data for the entire state. And we need those locations because well drillers record geologic information of the materials that they pass through. And so that information is vital to all of our mapping. Our bedrock geologists use it, our glacial geologists use it, and it is just such a huge database that we can use. And so that effort is vital to our work. The Part A that we'll be working on takes about 4 years and costs roughly about $400,000. I mentioned that the DNR comes after us to do the Part B. They will use our cross sections mostly, looking at those buried sand bodies, and add water information. They'll take water samples and do some chemistry and dating and find out how old the water is, where it's coming from, how quickly it might need to recharge, those kind of things. And their efforts take about 3 years from the time that they get started. After each part is complete, we will offer you a presentation and possibly a field trip or a workshop so that you folks can invite folks that are using this information, from well drillers to school kids to landowners that might be interested in learning about the geology. We will present our results to them, deliver these maps to you, and answer all of your questions. This is just a quick graphic of where we get our funding. We're not asking you for any money other than to pay for the effort it takes to locate the water wells, and that's all on your end. No money is exchanged between us. Most of our funding comes from the state of Minnesota, from the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. We also get money from the Clean Water Fund. Those are lottery proceeds for the most part. The DNR pitches in some money for our work as well as their work. And we also use some federal programs to help cost share our efforts and make all of that money go a little bit further. This is just a map that shows our current status of the program. Anything in red has been complete. We do have an atlas for these counties, or at least a Part A. Anything in gold shows work that is currently underway. Some things are getting close. St. Louis and Lake has been several years worth of a project, but we're getting close to producing those. Aiken is almost finished, and Steele is almost finished. Other counties, Lyon, for example, and Swift, have been locating for the past year, and our work in those counties will actually start this summer. So any work that we would start in Koochiching, for example, if you were to approve this work, you would have this next year to locate water wells, and our work for the MGS would not begin until sometime next summer. Here's a similar status map for the Part Bs. Again, they have to wait until we're actually finished our work so that they can get started. So you'll notice that we have a lot of counties that are still in progress that they're not able to start on until we complete. So that apparently was my last slide. So I will go back to unsharing my screen if I can figure out how to do it. Stop sharing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Emily is here as well, and Paul. So if you have any questions for us, thank you for your time.
Where are you at on Lake of the Woods? Where are you at with completing Lake of the Woods?
With Lake of the Woods, that county actually started just last summer, and COVID year kind of put a monkey wrench into things, so I don't think we've gotten very far along. They have certainly had a year to locate water wells, and so we will jump in this summer with field work in that area. The surficial mapping will get started. Bedrock mapping and compilation of data is going on during the winter times, looking up data that we can actually access on our computers right now.
You had said that you have cross sections every mile?
Yes, it's every kilometer actually.
Every kilometer. So then you said you're going to take information from the wells that we'll locate, the drill logs from those wells.
Yes.
Determine the
material between the bedrock and the surface. In those areas where there isn't well data, how are you going to supplement the data, get those cross sections every?
We interpolate between cross sections. That's where our geologic expertise comes in. We can interpret the environment that material was deposited, and so we can make some educated guesses. We also will do some rotary sonic drilling, which is a drilling program that we will contract for. It's a special kind of almost a well drilling rig, but it's a special kind of drilling rig that we can drill all the way to the bedrock and retrieve a 4-inch diameter core. And so we'll actually have some golden spikes throughout the county that will identify the sediments all the way down to the bedrock. And we can, again, we can correlate between those cores, and we can use that to help us interpret the water well data, even if they're few and far between.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you. Paul, did you have any comments you wanted to make about the Part B? I kind of left you hanging there.
No, I thought you did a nice job, Barb, summarizing it. So unless there's any questions, I don't have anything else.
Just one here for whoever. How long has this program been going on?
We have been mapping since 1982, I believe. We got a rather slow start, and then the state of Minnesota determined and realized how important this information is, and they gave us a big boost of funding, and so we are now juggling about 20 counties at a time. Our pace is to try to start 5 new counties each year. COVID might slow us down a little bit because we've had some staffing changes, but hopefully we'll get back up and continue that pace because we're down to the last 20 counties in the state. We hope to be finished within the next decade or so. Like I said, each county actually takes about 4 years. That's kind of a rough estimate because different counties require a different amount of time. And that's from when we start. So even if you were to sign the agreement today and say, okay, let's go, our 4 years countdown doesn't actually start until next year when we can actually get out and start working in the field.
I imagine that this is contingent upon funding through the state. Do you anticipate any funding shortages or anything that would slow you down?
We are hoping that we do not have any funding shortages. You're correct. It is definitely contingent on funding through the state. And so far, they have been very generous. We have not had any issues. This last year with COVID, our LCCMR grant was not awarded, but they didn't actually award any of the money. So that is likely to, it's actually being heard on the floor at the House this session. And so we may actually have 2 awards coming through this year. So we don't anticipate any problems at this point. And we are, like I said, we're diversifying a bit. We are working with the Clean Water Council as well, and we're using federal funds to help us stretch every dollar we can.
Do you have any questions? I know Matt brought this up here, and I think everybody got a chance to look at it and read it and stuff, and I think it's of great importance to see where our underground water is, and I do agree. I think it is a good thing to know when you're doing some structuring in your county. Not that we always do that to the extent that maybe some other counties do, but it is important to know where our underground waterways are and some of the rock lies and things like that. So, anybody have any questions for Barb or Paul?
I would recommend that you visit our website. The DNR Part B also has a website, so you can look up some of those PDFs of each of the different plates. You could look through the user's guide and just familiarize yourself with more information. Certainly talk to the counties around you. St. Louis and Lake are, like I said, nearly complete. Lake of the Woods is just starting. You can certainly email us or call us with any questions that might come up.
Barb, what I'll do is I'll get the agreement from you and then I'll present it to the board, maybe at the next county board meeting.
Certainly. If there are no more questions, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
At this time, I will call for public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
A motion?
Second?
Okay, Commissioner Skoye. All those in favor of adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, everybody.